right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southwest Regional Manufacturing Association virtual roundtable event called Recover, Reboot, and Restore. My name is Jeff Poirier, and I'm the current SRMA board president, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. So our roundtable events are designed for discussion and conversation around topics. We provide value information to the viewer and try to coordinate and bring the viewer and engage them into the actual conversation. So for current SRMA members, we thank you for your commitment to the organization. If you're not a current member, we encourage you to join. You can visit our website at www.srma.net and pledge your commitment. And your contribution here provides valuable resources to the current and future businesses in the area. We provide a grounds for us helping manufacturers and associates grow within the region. So we do encourage you to join the SRMA or become a sponsor if you can do that. So today we're going to be discussing how to work within to get through and recover from the current pandemic. While some businesses have seen an increase in workload during this historic event, others have not fared so well. So we want to hear from you. We want to know, how well you've done, some stories, maybe potentially some questions you have. We'd love to hear your story, whether it's good or bad, and really how you've made it through if you have. So following the presentation, we're going to encourage you to reach out to the SRMA. You can email us at any time at info@srma.net and provide feedback. It can be valuable for helping us through this current event, or if something else happens as a future crisis, we can have a better plan and we can organize faster by having that valuable information. So this roundtable will feature 3 expert panelists from Southwest Florida that specialize in international trade, Lee County business development, and then regional staffing. We're going to ask the panelists questions and allow time for them to respond accordingly, and we're going to mix up the order that we go in with the panelists. If you have questions during the event, feel free to submit them to the platform. This is Zoom, so down near the bottom, there's a Q&A button. You can click that button and you can ask questions, and we'll try to address them if we have time. So we're going to hold a lot of the Q&A for the panelists until the end. We do have some pre-submitted questions and some pre-recorded questions that we're going to do first. And then if there are extras or we miss something, go ahead and submit it through the chat. And worst case, submit one through our website and we can answer that off topic some other time. So to begin today's discussion, I'm going to start by introducing our expert panelists and give you a little bit of a background on their experience and how they contribute. So our first panelist today is going to be Kevin Brady. Kevin is an international trade specialist with Florida Small Business Development Center at Florida Gulf Coast University. It covers Lee, Henry, Glades, and Charlotte counties. His focus is consulting with companies that are currently involved with global import-export, and he's looking for clients to help them build their business domestically and internationally. So Kevin is, I've known Kevin for quite a while. He's really good with the international sales. So if you have additional questions after the presentation, you can submit those through the website or through our email, and Kevin can probably help you out there. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to say anything for a starter, or I can get right into your questions and start grilling you. Oop, you're on mute, Kevin. There you go.
Let's jump right in with the questions, Jeff.
All right, perfect. So let me start with what industries would you say have the best export opportunities for local manufacturers here within Southwest Florida?
Well, I think there are several industries that we are seeing good opportunities, and this is spread out not only in Latin America and the Caribbean, but also throughout the world. A lot of business going on right now in infrastructure, a lot of development, in particular in Latin America. We're seeing a lot of roads being built in Colombia, Peru, Chile. Companies are looking to purchase construction materials related to infrastructure, but we're also seeing a lot of medical supplies being sold as well. So those are 2 key industries that we're seeing that are really driving the exports right now, as well as telecommunications. So okay. Not only in Latin America, but we're seeing it in Southeast Asia.
So Kevin, just for someone who's novice in international trade, how do we break into a market like that, since there might be a language barrier? What's your best, first resource?
Well, you would certainly want to turn to some of the local resources, myself, Enterprise Florida, perhaps the U.S. Department of Commerce. We all work in harmony together providing expertise to local businesses. So if anyone does have questions regarding that, I would be glad to get you started on that and push you in that direction. But for all the exporters out here, the local companies, there's lots of opportunities and there's lots of resources and help right now.
Okay. Now, what are you seeing in the marketplace currently? Are you seeing an uptick in exports? Are we getting back to a normal flow? Or is it still a lull? What are we seeing in the?
Well, I think companies are looking for opportunities right now. I think there has been a lull in activity, certainly with the things going on the production side. Companies have slowed down in terms of actual production, but we do see companies looking at other ways to diversify their revenues right now besides working in a domestic market. So to answer your question, yes, I think companies are turning to exports to try to drive some additional business right now.
Okay. So how do we safeguard our supply chains then? I mean, if you're bringing material in, producing something within the United States, and then you're exporting, how do you make sure that stays seamless?
Well, this has certainly been a hot topic here with COVID. Companies right now, I think really it's a great time to kind of reassess what they're doing and put plans in place regarding their supply chain. It's also a great opportunity to diversify, look for other suppliers, because a lot of production is moving out of China into other markets. I've had a number of companies approach me, ask me about trying to nearshore their product or buy it here domestically. Mexico is a good option in a lot of cases if they supply that raw material or they supply a finished product that company is looking for. Mexico offers some advantages, certainly in terms of production time and lead times and deliveries. So companies can shave off about 30 days compared to purchasing in China. And this will enable companies to also enhance their cash flow as opposed to putting that money out early, having to wait for those goods to arrive.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the next panelist at this point so we can get a few questions for everyone, and then we'll circle back around after that. Panelist number 2, if you can unmute your mic, is Dana Brunette. He's the Business Development Director for Lee County Economic Development Office. He's been 30 years experience in economic development in New York and Florida, and he's a pillar of this area. So Dana, I don't know if you want to do a quick intro, or you got anything else, or you want to jump right into your questions at this point?
Good morning, Jeff, and let's jump right into it.
Morning, you got it. All right, so I'm hearing you're encouraging businesses locally to do a supply chain analysis since the pandemic struck. Can you give us kind of maybe an example or a quick walkthrough on what that entails?
Yeah, when we did follow-ups after everything really kind of hit, we reached out via email and phone to a lot of businesses to ascertain how they were doing during the downturn or during the pandemic. I'm still stuck in 2009, but the overarching concern was we can't get access to product. And we all fall into the same boat because, when you're operating a business, the bottom line is so important that, you're sourcing the cheapest products possible. But, when something like this comes along, then you realize, you're stuck. You can't get access to product. Product isn't flowing because of travel restrictions, whatever you have, they're stuck with that. So what we're looking at is saying, okay, are you over-reliant on international sources? Take a hard look at that. And you say, yeah, but doing it domestically it can get expensive, and I understand that. But how much did it cost you not being able to access product during the pandemic? When in some instances, some industries were actually increasing business, but they were hamstrung by the fact that they couldn't get access to product. So take a look at that. Try and find some local resources. Even Lee County is doing it. We worked with a few different businesses, and we'll get into some of what we did later. But one of the things we did is we worked with a company out of Michigan who actually sourced a facility down here, and they make masks. So we will have a full-time company in our backyard who produces surgical 3-ply N95 masks. And the thing is, that's not their full-time job. They normally do industrial and marine filters. And that's one of the reasons why they were looking at coming down here. And then the whole situation with the mask shortage really kind of urged them to come down even sooner. So they're up and running. They have about 20 employees, and they're producing about 6 million masks a week. And they're going to be expanding. They're in 11,000 square feet now. They're going to be moving to 40,000 square feet by the end of the year. So they're serious about this, but they also have their main line of business. So they have something to fall back on, which is their regular line of business. But now we have a resource that we know of right in our backyard that we can access during these times. Because it's not just us, it's the county, it's all the EMS, it's LESAR and Lee Health and all the other hospitals in the region. We sat there and said, well, most of our masks are coming from China. Well, that didn't help us too much. Just looking at what you do, where the resources are, do a cost analysis. Yeah, it might be a little more expensive, but in the long run, it actually could save you money and time. Getting access to product domestically, we all know, you can get it pretty quickly. So I think it's good for these businesses to take a step back and take a look at how the pandemic affected their business, not just supply chain, but overall, and then see how they can make some changes or put some protocols in place that allows them to be more responsive in future situations.
Okay. Now, for a small business that wants to save costs during these obviously tough times, is that an in-house process, or do you expect them to go kind of to a consultant to do a supply chain analysis? Let's say if we have parts we source from around the world.
A lot of them will do it in-house. They'll take a look at resources. They have organizations that they work with, distribution companies, things like that. We also know that the location hasn't been announced yet, but Uline is coming to Southwest Florida, and they're going to build a 1 million square foot facility. So now that's mostly shipping related products, but it's still nice having something like that in your backyard. That you can get access to. But yeah, there are consultants out there that do that. And Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you might even be able to get some supply chain assistance from the Small Business Development Center at FGCU as well.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point. Now is a great time for companies to kind of reassess what they're doing. And like you said, not only look at the supply chain, but look at how it really affects your overall business. So yeah, here at the Small Business Development Center, we're open to work with clients. If they want to spend some time with us, we're always at no cost. So it's a good option to start out with. And if we feel like you need to go beyond that, we do have professionals in the field that we can refer to you.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention too, Jeff, is a lot of businesses look at how much stock they carry. A lot of them just like to bring the product in and get it out. After something like this, I've had a few of them reconsider that and say, maybe I should have more on hand, if we get caught up on this. And Kevin, you said it yourself, each business is different. So you have to look at it and see what's best for you, whether it be affordability or storage space or anything that goes along with that.
Yeah, and this might be more of a Kevin question, but basically having an agreement with your supplier to keep stock on their shelf as well is another way to not have it in-house. Whether they'll honor that during a time of high demand, I'm not positive. Kevin, you may know more about that.
Yeah, that's always a tricky one, Jeff. Gets back to the level of relationship you have with that supplier, and certainly how the money's flowing to that supplier. So yeah, those are all tricky questions. But as you guys had referenced, now's a great time to really look at your inventory levels. Start looking at your production levels, analyze your procurement, really kind of, look at this long term because we really don't know right now what the effect is going to be. I mean, we could be another year with this COVID before we, have some type of resolution and get back to normal. But then again, we need to look also that we may not get back to the way it was before. So, companies need to consider that on the logistics side also that we're going to see a lot of the trucking companies, the shipping companies, the shipping lines, they're going to have fewer routes coming out of different places. So we're going to have to adjust for those factors as well.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to announce and introduce our third speaker, Bill Welch. Bill, if you can unmute yourself. Bill Welch is an account executive at the Business Services for the Career Source of Southwest Florida. He's been there for about 30 years within staffing and consulting, so he knows a thing or two about getting jobs and bringing people together. Bill, anything you want to say before I go through your questions, or do you want to get right into it?
No, you can get right into it.
All right, perfect. So if I have open positions in my manufacturing plant, but the workers I'm interviewing need additional training, what's my next step? What am I looking for at that point?
Well, right now I would say there's quite a bit of opportunities to use the resources through the SRMA through various means to help with the training and the cost for bringing on new employees. One of them is through Career Source, Southwest Florida. We do offer a program where most of our services and programs are geared toward the businesses, and we have this one, it's on-the-job training program where, in this case, it's the new hire or the trainee who would be eligible, has to be eligible for this program, and primarily it's really a reimbursement for some of the wages for a new hire if there's a skills gap and training needs to be given. It's a great program that we do locally. Also, the second one, and we could also get into more detail if we need to, if there's more questions, but anybody that really wants additional information after I give this are able to go ahead and just use the SRMA website and just contact me through the info@srma.net, and I'll be more than happy to get back to them right away. So the on-the-job training program, short as OJT, is that we would, based on that skills gap for that new hire or the new trainee, would reimburse the employer up to $6,500 over a 6-month period per employee. And so that's a great resource to try to lessen the burden of bringing somebody on that doesn't necessarily have the skills. And you're able to get a diamond in the rough. And it's a win-win scenario because the employer gets the diamond in the rough where we're able to go ahead and offset some of those financial costs. But also it's a great for an applicant or a trainee to get the foot in the door with a great organization and get the skills necessary to go ahead and move forward. So the other option is through, actually Florida Makes right now has a brand new industrial manufacturing technician apprenticeship program that just started in July. And they have really streamlined it. They are the sponsors for the sponsorship for the apprenticeship, so it saves the employer a lot of money and a lot of hassles. It's both 2,000 hours of on-the-job training as well as 200 hours through the internet training, classroom training, virtual. And if you're a member of the SRMA, the costs are only $985. And so that is another great resource. The other thing would be is iTech. We have a couple of the technical schools that will help with the training of those employees coming on board. To help with the rebooting of the employer. And right now, they just announced they've got 2 locations, one in Naples and one in Immokalee, where they will offer right now through the end of the year open enrollment where there's no cost for anything whatsoever as far as tuition, classroom through the end of the year. So it's a great opportunity for an employer to take their existing workforce that may need some skills, and they actually will tailor programs around your needs as an employer or manufacturer.
So, Bill, real quick, if I can jump in and ask another question regarding the on-the-job training and all that. What is the sequence of events that it takes to get that thing rolling? Right? Are you already hiring that individual, and then you find out they have a skills gap, and then you're applying for this, or is this something you need to do pre-hire?
Yeah, the on-the-job training program, the agreement between Career Source, and I call it an agreement even though it's officially a contract, but primarily that agreement has to be in place between Career Source Southwest Florida and the manufacturer or the employer before that individual starts work. So there's a lot of times where I get a call, they started Monday and here it is Wednesday. Unfortunately, we have to have this systems in place because it's federal tax dollars we're using, and we get monitored, not so much the manufacturer or the trainee, but we get monitored, so we have to build a file before that person starts work.
Okay.
Generally, if we have a brand new employer manufacturer that is new to us, we generally say about a week's time from the time we identify a candidate to the time they actually could start. But once we get rolling, it could be as quickly as 2 days.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of time spent in dilly-dallying. It doesn't really matter where that candidate comes from. It could come from us. It could come from a walk-in. It could come from a referral from an existing employee base. It really doesn't matter where the employee comes from.
Okay. So should manufacturers reach out to you if they're interested in this program at all before?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can contact me directly or go through the SRMA website and just reach out to me that way, and I'll get right back to them.
Okay. Pivoting just a little bit, what are you seeing as currently the highest demand for jobs in the area? Because I know you cater to more than just manufacturing, right?
Yeah, I would say right now for the manufacturing, it's really across the board. Everything from professional level, executive levels, all the way down to entry level operators. Obviously, the CNC operators, is in great demand right now. I probably fielded three emails yesterday alone for operators. But once again, each manufacturer is different, each machines are different, and so the demands are different. And we could try to do our best as far as trying to assist them. But a lot of accounting positions, some HR positions, some sales and marketing positions. So it's really across the board.
Okay. Are you seeing a wage stagnation, or are you seeing people jump jobs at this point to try to get a?
No, that's part of the issue. Unlike 2008, where the last recession we had, or the last crunch, a lot of the employees jumped ship for a very little bit amount of money, and it didn't really matter what level, even at the professional level, they were jumping from one employer to another. We're not seeing that here. Everybody is staying put. And or if they're not working currently, they're getting enough stipend either from the unemployment wages from both the state and the federal level where they're not really looking right now. So it's hard to find eligible candidates that have the skills necessary right off the bat, and that's where the OJT on the job training program comes into play, and some of these other avenues for trying to get some bench in your employee base.
Okay. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go back to Kevin real quick and ask some more on international trade, getting your businesses back up. Hey, Kevin, what if we want to bring back some of our staff and get back in business and start to ramp up a little bit, but we're having trouble, or we want to keep cash flow a little tighter? Is there anything to help us cover some of the payroll expenses? Where would we start looking? I know we had the PPP protection. What else is out there for us? Nope, you're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah, certainly at the federal level, we had the PPP, and the talk is that we'll probably have another round of the PPP. The idle loans are wrapping up right now, so there's a limited window for companies to get involved with the idle loans. But beyond that, I think what we're seeing also at the Small Business Development Center, a lot of companies are trying to access capital. Lenders right now are being proactive in lending money, even at the lower levels. I mean, all the way down to micro loans through Suncoast Credit Union. So there are funds available, and I think if you are looking to access some capital right now, it is a good time.
Okay. Do you see a potential trend coming up with changes in the interest rate? Would it be better to get going now?
I certainly believe it would be better. The sooner the better right now. So, yeah.
All right. Now, in terms of diversification of your supply chain, are you hearing about where these new opportunities, I guess, outside of China are going to be? I know you mentioned Mexico. Any other nations that pop up as a potential option?
Yeah. So what we're seeing a lot of business move out of China into Southeast Asia in particular. So markets like Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, large labor force markets have picked up a lot of business there. Conversely, it's also turn those markets into good export markets for U.S. companies as well. So we see an emergence of middle class in a lot of these marketplaces. Once again, same type products we were talking about, or industries we were referencing in Latin America, infrastructure, healthcare. Those are some of the key things that are going on there. But yeah, Southeast Asia is picking up a lot of that business. Latin America has also done pretty well. We're seeing some movement in Colombia, Peru, Chile, and those are countries that we do have free trade agreements with. So, U.S. companies should be looking at some other options as well.
Do you find that it's harder to find those specific supply chains? I mean, we've been working with China, and it's been our dominant supplier for a number of years, right? So any magazine you open up is going to have supply chains that link back to China. But if you're looking for additional supply chains to try to diversify, is that something you're going to have to go find, or how does that work?
Yeah, you're probably in a lot of cases going to need assistance. I mean, obviously, you've got these platforms such as Alibaba and some of these other places where a lot of people start. However, there are other means of finding companies. There are databases people may not have access to that I do have access to. Thomas.net is a really good one that's more domestic in nature. Dun & Bradstreet, of course, is global in scope, and there's a number of businesses you could find there. But, as we talk about the different markets, it's not just Southeast Asia or Latin America. Even in Europe, we've seen a lot of production move out of China and go into markets like Poland, Turkey, some Eastern European countries. So I think this trend's going to continue, and I think companies do need to open their eyes to look around and see what's available to them.
Any type of certification for certain products you look for? I know this the CE for European standards. We have UL. If they're looking for specific products, how do we know we're finding the same quality when we merge into these new markets?
Well, chances are you're probably going to get a little better quality just getting out of China, perhaps, in some cases. But yeah, depending on where these products are manufactured, they are going to have their local certifications they need to adhere to, but also global certifications. And you can look at some of these companies, maybe ISO approved. So those are things you can look for when you do start contacting a business. What's nice now is with digital marketing and the availability to go to people's websites and communicate with them directly. I think it makes it certainly easier to source things overseas now than, say, 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. Now, as we're starting to diversify our supply chains, are there any local or federal assistance programs that may help you, break into these new markets or try to get into some areas that you haven't been before?
Yeah,
instead of internationally.
There's a number of resources you can use. Buyusa.gov is a site you could go to. I referenced Thomas.net has a great directory of suppliers throughout the United States. That would be a great place to start for a business if they wanted to look around. Buy Direct USA is another one. MadeInAmerica.co. So there are a number of sites that people can go to start, finding leads, finding companies they may want to connect with. And then they can also use any of the local references like myself, Dana, any of these people here, we're here to help and certainly want to do that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to switch back to Dana and give Kevin a break for a minute. Dana, is this a good time for your business to consider investing in new equipment or expanding? I know that, unfortunately, as some businesses have not kept up during the pandemic, some need additional equipment. So you've seen, an increase in some used equipment for sale. Is it the time to invest, or are we supposed to wait a little longer and try to see the end of the light in the tunnel?
Yeah, I believe so, especially in the manufacturing sector. A lot of the manufacturers were able to stay up and running or were considered essential. So they've been cranking along. Some others have had to dial it back a little bit, but they still have, orders coming in and they're ramping back up. But yeah, this is a good time, mainly because, you have access to some pretty incredibly cheap financing out there if you are going for equipment. We always say, gee, I'd like to do this, and I really can't afford to. Well, SBA 504 rates right now are like 2.4%. I mean, in our world, that's almost free money. That's incredibly cheap, especially when you're financing it over multiple years. So yeah, now's the time to get that new piece of equipment. I've met with several manufacturers who are looking to upgrade, replace equipment, even pivoting to a certain extent and adding equipment to make products that are related to PPE. So I've been able to connect them with a lot of the banks. The banks have done a ton of work with the PPP program. They want to get back to their traditional financing. They want to do those things that creates the bread and butter for them. So there's a lot of them out there that are hungry, and I encourage any business that's looking to access equipment or other things, improving their building, expanding, whatever, reach out to us, and we can probably connect you with the people that can most help you. Like I said, I've done it several times. I've been out to different shops, walked the floor, took a look at what they wanted to do. And, now is a great time to do that, especially now when people are starting to catch up. The other thing, too, is I'm kind of stealing a little thunder here from Bill, but it's a great time to get access to training for some of your people. Get some people, upgraded, get them certified, get them trained on other machinery, things like that. So that you can bring new people on at a lower level and build your inventory of human assets. So it's a great thing to do. But the other thing that's going on now is through the county, we've been offering programs to smaller businesses to get access to some money to help them. In the beginning, we called it the relaunch program, getting them $5,000 to kind of open their doors again or get back up and running. And then recently we've been running what's known as the rehires program, where if you can show that you lost people or positions, I should say, to COVID, if like your employment levels at the end of March are less now than they were at the end of March, you can qualify for rehires grant funds. So I encourage anybody who hasn't taken a look at that to please do that. You can go to www.leeflcares.com and take a look at what's there for you, because the program ends this Friday. So if you have any needs for rehiring people, we could do this. The other thing this program does that's kind of unique is it allows you to take 1099 contractors who work for you and make them W-2 employees. And you can get grant money to help facilitate that as well. Because there's a lot of people out there that have contract employees and maybe they want to bring them on full time and keep them. This could be a good time to do that. And there's a lot of federal programs out there in support of disaster loans. PPP money is still out there. And I mentioned the SBA 504 and EDA, Economic Development Administration, is also putting monies out there for both infrastructure, and they're populating small business loan funds all across the country, which is also helpful because that can help those businesses that don't quite make it for bank financing. It helps them get those, what we call them, training wheels, so they can get a small loan from those funds, pay it as agreed, and then qualify for traditional bank financing.
Okay. So you mentioned pivoting. Basically, that was pivoting of manufacturers during, the height of this thing when we were all getting prepared to make PPE and prepare this region ahead of, any potential spike in cases. Now, some people may have heard that companies were pivoting. Some were involved directly, maybe through the SRMA. How do we get on that list? As manufacturers, if we want to help, who do we contact? How do you get involved in that for even if there's another issue or surge?
Well, first of all, I think the SRMA should be made aware of it, so they have an understanding of what their membership is doing and what the capabilities are out there. And yes, our office, we would love to find out who pivoted and what they pivoted to, and are they going to continue? A lot of people pivoted, but now they want to get back to their main business. But there's still other businesses that say, yeah, we will continue to do this because we found places that we can sell the product, and we're making money, and that's what we're all here for, to make money. So it's an important thing for us to understand what's going on, because we have contacts with, we have our county emergency management, we have LESAR and Lee Health, and a bunch of other, the Medical Society of Lee County. So is if we're aware of the assets, we can make them aware as well, because as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to strengthen our local supply chain as well, because we don't want to be as reliant on outside resources when we can do it in our backyard. And the thing we love the most is when you source things in your backyard, that money is working in your community, and that helps all of us. So yeah, the pivoting is an important thing, and we saw a lot of it. We saw both of our distilleries here in town, Mr. Tom's and Wicked Dolphin, pivot over to make hand sanitizer. Fort Myers Brewing Company prepared wash for the sanitizer so they can combine the alcohol with the wash. D3 Glass made panels, health panels or health screens to put in supermarkets and other locations so that people had protection. We talked about NFI Masks, a company that came here, and they're producing masks. We had a lot of other businesses pivot over to create masks. We had people who had staff actually sitting there physically sewing masks. But every little bit helps. When you get hit this hard internationally, it's amazing, how people came together and really got themselves out there. We had people with 3D printers making plastic extenders that nurses and stuff and people in the medical industry could use, because the masks were damaging their ears because they're wrapped around their ears and they're wearing them so much that they're getting raw. Yeah. So these plastic tabs had little prongs on them so they could put the mask on that and put it behind their head, kind of like having a hat. And we had one of our own members, S4J Manufacturing, pivoted over and made plastic shields that went on their faces. So everybody did what they could to be of help. But yes, if they can reach out to us, to SRMA, so we can get a running inventory of those businesses out there that have pivoted or are willing to pivot, and the products that they can make, that will come in handy, because who knows, we could be seeing a second wave or whatever you want to call it when winter comes. So it's always good to have an inventory of the resources out there locally.
Are you seeing those supply chains stay? Do you have any indication whether those are going to keep going, or is that a temporary thing for a stockpile?
Well, I think everybody, especially in the medical emergency management positions, are stocking up tremendously because they want to protect against this going forward. But everyone only has so much space, so you get to a certain point and you do have to rely on a supply chain. So all we're saying is diversify your supply chain. Make sure you can access it locally as opposed to having to wait for something to come up from China. And as we saw earlier this year, sometimes that doesn't even work.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Dana. I'm going to pivot back to Bill real quick. So, Bill, what are you seeing from recent graduates and technical training students when they get right out of the program? I mean, during the 2008, we know that a lot of people went back to school. They tried to reinforce their skills, and it basically, pushed up what the bar was for, entry-level positions and what employers were looking for. What are you seeing at this point?
Sorry, brother, go ahead.
That was it.
So yes, there's actually quite a few organizations out there, especially at the university, the colleges, as well as the tech schools, that are actually reaching out to students that are still in school and trying to get them employed, because a lot of I forget what the actual percentage is, but quite a few students, especially like FGCU, they actually work while they're going to school. And with the hospitality, a lot of them were in hospitality, and a lot of those folks are not up and running yet to full capacity. So the schools and all these different schools, whether it be university, college, or tech schools, were concerned that a lot of the students would not come back because they would not be able to afford it. And so there's a tremendous push out there for helping those students to get employment while they're going to school. And the recent graduates also, they're the relocation or the specialists for the different colleges and universities are reaching out, and we're trying to put on virtual career fairs for those recent graduates and getting those employers that have interest in those folks and trying to connect them together. So there's a lot of behind the scenes going on for those recent grads.
Are you seeing the same trend where students that may have gone to a four-year college are now moving towards technical schools like iTech? You seeing that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a slow burn process where we've been talking about it for a very long time, as well as the federal and the state level. And that's where, Florida Makes came up with that apprenticeship program, is that a lot of the students, really came down to the parents and guidance counselors really understanding that they don't necessarily, not everybody is geared toward a four-year degree. And we're getting more and more people coming to us, either the youth and or people within the organizations, the guidance counselors, saying, okay, how can I reach out? How can I get connected with employers that have an interest in taking these folks on, even at the high school level, to move forward into a career in the trades and manufacturing. So that's even this week, I had one organization down in Naples that is a nonprofit that tries to help students in high school gear toward technical and manufacturing positions, and want to reach out. And then I also got some feedback from a couple of parents just this week for trying to help their students or their children that are graduated high school into getting into a technical trade like manufacturing. Okay. So it is slowly happening.
You mentioned outreach to the schools. What's the best way for a manufacturer? Who do they approach? Do they approach you, or do they try to get directly in touch with someone?
Yes, the SRMA definitely can help to facilitate that. Matter of fact, I just had a conversation yesterday by email where it's the biggest thing is either to have the employer actually come out to the schools and or actually have the students come out to the manufacturing setting to actually see what it's like for manufacturers. And that it's a clean environment, and that it's very high skilled, and that there's a lot of promise as far as a whole career. So yes, there is a lot of that going on, and that's the biggest way. The easiest way to go through us, the SRMA, and we will set it up for them.
Okay. Now I'm going to plug the event at the end of this presentation as well too, but we are hosting a virtual manufacturing tour coming up in October, which is Manufacturing Month. So if we can get that link out, you can get a chance to see some of the local outstanding manufacturers we have in the area. To another question, Bill, did you see a push from work from home in the manufacturing industry? Manufacturing is a little different, right? Because you have both blue collar and white collar, and you're trying to integrate those two to make products. What did you see happen? What did you see as the trip ups? Did some work from home and others stay in the plant? How do you coordinate? What did you see?
Yes, primarily it was the professional, the white collar, your HR, your upper management that was primarily working from home. The people that were working on the floor, they actually had reduced hours based on the manufacturer, of course, had reduced hours, and then if they had a case of a COVID-19, they would shut the plant down for a couple of days and come back in and restart. So at first it was really strictly by email. It was even hard to get a hold of folks on the phone as far as the decision makers, your hiring managers, your HR professionals in the manufacturing here in Southwest Florida. That's now changed. Most everybody is now transitioned back into the office. And obviously the production and the floor are full steam ahead. So they're back in and they're working away.
I guess, did you hear of any conflicts or hiccups where, typically white collar and blue collar, there's a nice barrier. They're in person working together, but now there's a kind of a gap?
Not really. There was a little bit of a hiccup with in regard to the furloughed employees where they were asked to come back. Obviously, these are operators and your QC and shipping where they did not want to first come back. And or the other direction was they were furloughed and were having issues with trying to collect unemployment. And so we were getting calls, or I was getting calls from the HR folks saying, hey, I just furloughed these folks. What's the best way for them to collect their unemployment? And it was a mess at first. And that's pretty much been taken care of. And so most of the people have come back that are going to come back, and we're trying to backfill some of those open positions.
Kevin, I'm going to switch back to you real quick. So are you seeing a transition away from just-in-time manufacturing with a supply chain choke? Are you seen people stock up before the crisis hits. What's changed in your opinion in terms of supply chain management?
Well, I think certainly just in time kind of went out the window with COVID.
Yeah.
So companies are scrambling, I think, right now just to have those supplies, have those raw materials available to them. And the struggle is that they're having to put out money for those products in advance, and certainly with longer lead times right now, that can be a problem with cash flow. So I do think as we kind of move towards purchasing more domestically or nearshoring that production, the just-in-time may come back, and those are some of the advantages, obviously, when you're purchasing something closer to home here. But right now, I think companies, and we touched on this, and Dana touched on it, they're really, it's a time to reassess what you're doing, look at those inventory levels, and do some really good projections as to what you might need to produce in a 3-month period, a 6-month period, just to give you an idea of how much money you're going to need, how much time you're going to need. So yeah, I think companies are really struggling with that right now, Jeff. That's a real challenge, but I think it's a matter of just organizing this, putting a plan in place, and interesting enough, in the corporate world, we're hearing for the first time, supply chain is now in the boardroom. It's become something that's so critical, that's been, not overlooked, but I think it's just kind of been status quo, and now people are having to really scramble and figure out how they're going to manage this going forward.
So for the larger firms, I guess, or if you have the money in pocket to do this, are you seeing a lot of supply chain integration into the main business? Are they purchasing up the suppliers and trying to create their own supply chains, like what we saw in the Toyota Way presentation a while back? Or are they just trying to solidify and diversify?
I think most companies are just looking to diversify. I mean, I have heard of some acquisitions. People are also investing in some of the factories overseas as well, so they may have a little more control as far as getting those products in and getting them made. But for the most part, I think most companies are just looking for different suppliers right now. I certainly tell people, don't get rid of your old supplier. Even if you had issues, keep that old supplier, find another one, find maybe 2 more, for most of your products. Your key components, obviously, you want to have 2 or 3 suppliers you can depend on. So, I think companies right now, like you said, are really just trying to diversify and scramble and do what they can to keep the production going.
And I could chime in on that as well too. If you are getting new suppliers, first article inspection is an important thing. So, bring in samples from all these new companies, even if you have to lay out the money. The last thing you want to find out is that the production run was incorrect or doesn't meet your specification after you've ordered 5,000. So.
And that's a great point. Whether that's domestic or international, if you have a quality assurance person, send them to the factory, send them over there. Just watch them make those samples, watch them come off the line. You want to make sure that you're getting the same quality you were getting before. So keep in mind that is a process. So people, companies right now is the time to start looking at developing these suppliers, because it's not really going to happen overnight. You really want to spend some time and understand how they're making your product, how they're creating that material for you, and making sure it fits with what you're trying to do.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, Jeff.
Yep, go ahead, Dana.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what you guys were talking about, one of the other tools available to businesses locally when they're importing products from overseas, because there is a cost related to that, and if they want to bring over more and store them, they might want to consider reaching out to us and talk about the foreign trade zone. Because if they have tariffs and taxes on their products that they're bringing in, they could get a foreign trade zone space established at their facility, bring the product in and keep it in there, and they don't have to pay the tariffs or the taxes on that until they take it out and use it for production or resell it, somewhere in the domestically. So It is an interesting tool, and it's become more flexible now. It's getting easier to get approved for having FTZ space at your facility. And there is, there obviously there's rules attached and things you have to do. But for a lot of people out there, one of the stumbling blocks is, yeah, I want to bring more product in, but I have to pay all that stuff up front. Well, now you can pay it when you have the sale, or if or you're able to produce the product that you're going to sell. So, food for thought, just another tool in the toolbox for overcoming some of the costs related to bringing things in from overseas.
That's a great point. Dana, since you're talking, I'll just piggyback onto yours here. You're seeing, or you're hearing about a large migration of people moving from, I guess, the areas up north down here. We're feeling it in the construction industry. What types of individuals are migrating? Is this a business? Is this a retiree? Are we talking about, workers that are going to fill some of these supply chain positions? What are we looking at? Any idea?
Yes, all the above. I can tell you our office has seen a large uptick in people reaching out, site selectors, businesses directly, leads through the state, through Enterprise Florida. In the last 2 months, we've actually cited 4 new companies. The problem we have as a region is we have a lot of land, but it's not ready for buildings yet, and that's the stumbling block. Is there is so much prep that has to take place. So, getting the permitting, get everything in place, approvals in place to actually build a building. So a lot of them are reaching out and looking for existing buildings, but we all know in Southwest Florida the industrial building market is very tight. We have some flex space out around the airport that's there. But there's even, some timing involved with that too, for, cutting up the space, putting in offices, bathrooms, dropping in electrical air lines, whatever, what have you, for manufacturing. So there is some delays related to that. But yes, we are seeing a lot of interest. I've been talking with businesses from, tri-state area, New York, especially Ohio, Michigan. So they're interested in coming down here and establishing locations. And the thing is we're tax friendly, and that's enticing. But with some of the issues going on, because it's lingered so long up there, those businesses just say, I can't keep doing this. I got to get out of here and get somewhere where I can operate. And then, I'm not taking a jab at anybody when I say that. It's the reality of things right now. So we are welcoming a lot of businesses. And as a matter of fact, I'm meeting with one this afternoon. Got another one coming in next week, and another one the week after that. So we're staying busy, and I'm ecstatic myself to be able to be doing economic development. It was great, helping all the local businesses and working the Lee Cares program, but it's even better getting back to what we are here for. And that's bringing businesses in, that's creating jobs and opportunities. And, I work with Kevin on a lot of things, Bill as well, with all the training programs, we all work together. So when a business comes in, depending on the size, we're all involved in one way, shape, or form. So that's great. And the other thing I want to do is I'd like to see more manufacturers come in so we can help them join the SRMA.
Can I piggyback off of that?
Go for it.
Yeah, just to kind of complement what Dana was saying, absolutely there is a shortage of space, and this area is growing tremendously. And I'm actually working with Collier County. Actually reached out to us in assisting them in rezoning residential commercial property for advanced manufacturing. And they're actually right in the middle of it, rewriting code so they actually could have, so if a retail store goes out of business or changes location, and advanced manufacturing come into that location, and it's going to be right next to residential. And that's unheard of, especially for, down south in Collier County. So the growth in this area for manufacturing is as well as overall people coming to this state is just unbelievable, and I think it's going to continue growing.
Yeah, another thing on top of that we're starting to see is businesses like Amazon are targeting those empty big boxes because they want to use them for last mile storage and distribution.
Interesting. What do you think our next trend in terms of manufacturing industry is down here then? Are we going to be the next Silicon Valley? Are we making tech products? Are we doing cars? What are you guys seeing? Who is interested in this area? We know we have medical products and we know we have construction industry. What's our next thing? If I can ask.
And Bill can help me with this one, but it's kind of a chicken and the egg type thing. You know, we have businesses that want to be here, but do we have the skill sets to support them? They're willing to bring people with them or recruit, you know, domestically, but there's only so much they can do. So, you know, for us to be successful, we need to build our education base and get more certifications and be able to support those coming down. You know, there's all different kinds of medical related industries that have been looking at us. We got back office, you know, which translates pretty well for our population. But the thing we're looking at now is a lot of the people that are out there looking for work were in the hospitality industry. So, you know, there needs to be some sort of educational transition for them as well. Bill, I don't know if you want to add to that or not.
You know, absolutely. And we're trying to reach to those folks that are kind of sick of the up and down of the hospitality industry where they're either making money or they're not making money and they want to transition into something like manufacturing. We're definitely there to assist them. But yes, I would think as far as the going back to Jeff's question, as far as the type of industries that are coming here, I would agree with you. I think the medical, you know, with Arthrex being the big employer in the area, they are getting more and more of their suppliers locally, which is a smart idea to do. And it just kind of snowballs where we're getting a lot more manufacturing medical in the area. But there's also things like you mentioned the back office, a lot of different technicals in the background as far as IT and call centers, logistics companies that are just growing leaps and bounds. Also, I would mention even the aerospace. The SRMA covers a 5-county area. And I know that Glades is going to be having a new international airport, and they're going to be needing 3,000 professional type individuals to actually man that facility. And that's coming online. And so we're looking at it going, okay, how can we get these, once again, the skilled personnel to be able to do that? And that's what we're working with. You know, the SRMA, like you mentioned earlier, the SRMA, the Career Source, the Lee County and other EDOs, as well as all the colleges, universities, the tech schools, we're all in it together as a region to really make this happen. So there is a lot of behind the curtains action going on, and it's going to just take time to actually show up.
Hey, Jeff, the last part of your question, you were talking about, you know, retirees too. For a lot of us, that's an opportunity because a lot of these retirees, they're coming down fairly early. They have great skill sets, and they might be looking to work part-time or even full-time in the short term, you know, to augment their retirement. But, you know, if you can get some people, I know of a manufacturer that I worked with, he's got a guy that's coming in 2 or 3 days a week. And not only is he bringing the skills to his shop, you know, as far as the production goes, he's training other people. He's helping them along and giving them some of the skills that they need to get better at what they do. So, you know, yeah, you know, the retirees, they come and they spend their money, but the other thing too is they can become a valuable asset to the manufacturing and tech sectors.
Yeah, I'll second on that because we've had some firms solicit me personally and some other basically leadership development programs. So if they come down, they want to do some work for the last 4 or 5 years. They train leaders. They were in high executive positions up north. They don't want to end their career so quick. They're already down here, and now they can help train. So there are those people out here in the industry. We can help you connect with those as well. I do have one question. I guess it's for both Dana and Bill. Chicken or the egg, right? Is it, you know, government incentives, taxes, they're going to drive more businesses down here, the right businesses and the right people? Are we talking, you know, setting up the university programs to tailor to the market we want? Or is it the, you know, enticing the businesses themselves just to come down and start that process? What do you think?
Well, from the county standpoint, you know, the incentives really aren't where you start. That's where you end. All the incentives in the world don't make a bad location good. So you really have to have a location they want to be in. You have to have the workforce that they need. I always refer to incentives as the cherry on top. That's that last thing that puts you over the top. And right now, during the pandemic, the state and the county, our incentives are locked up really because everyone's kind of holding their breath and playing wait and see because of the finances and everything related to that. But yet we're also have an eye towards what can we do as an incentive that won't hurt the bottom line for the county, because we want to bring the companies in. We want, because they become taxpayers. They hire our people and they pay their taxes. It feeds the economic engine of our region. So when we look at bringing them in, what else can we do? Is it certified sites? To help get our raw land to the point where they can turn it around more quickly and build buildings. Is it doing something with impact fees? Whatever. There's a whole multitude of things that we can look at that may not hurt us as much financially, but make sense to the business. Because I've been doing this a long time. We have a lot of cookie cutter incentives. They don't necessarily help the business in the areas they need. Sometimes the incentive is bringing Bill on board and saying they need this type of training or whatever. Excuse me. Kevin's shop, they need some technical assistance for maybe some of the smaller businesses. But when we recruit in Southwest Florida, we don't have a ton of large tracts of land. So the small and medium-sized businesses are our bread and butter. They're more mobile. You're talking to the decision makers. And that's not to say we don't want the large projects. We definitely do. But those, you're in competition with several other states. You're working with a site selector. In many cases, you don't even know who the business is until you almost land them. So it's kind of an interesting situation when you look at it. But we definitely want new business here in the county, and we will do what we can to bring them here. But we want to do what makes sense for us fiscally as well.
And to back up, once again, to back Dan what he's saying, I would agree. I think a lot of the companies that come down here in Southwest Florida are small and medium-sized organizations. That's what we do. And the ones that, once again, that I work with Dana and Kevin with and the SRMA and other organizations, a lot of the principal owners have actually been here for a long time and decided to move their organization down here besides just having a vacation home or be a snowbird. And I think the state of Florida overall is very friendly business environment, and including Southwest Florida. And I think it comes down to customer service. We are literally welcoming companies to this area and responding to them very quickly, which is, I think, they're not used to it. And once again, to me, that's a very good incentive besides the financial that the state or the county may offer.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. I'm going to pivot back to Kevin on this one. It's a question that kind of came up before. As we talk about back office work and, we're all moving to more of a virtual platform, do you see an international outsourcing of more IT, more programming, more of the back office stuff, or do you think that's going to stick around here domestically?
I think it's going to stick around here domestically. I think that some of the larger corporations have tried to, to use those methods and go overseas, have the overseas call centers, and some do to an extent. But with our smaller businesses here in Southwest Florida, I think it'll all stay local. We do have a great IT consultant, Mark Farron, who's on our staff here. Mark's done a great job. He's worked with a lot of local companies here to help them develop their IT. But I don't know. I just don't see that a lot of that going out of the country. I think for our companies here, it's going to stay here locally.
Okay. Now, we were going to do 1 hour of basically pre-recorded questions and questions from me, the moderator, and then we're going to transition to some Q&A. So if there's anyone that has any Q&A questions right now, please post them to the chat and we'll ask those. Otherwise, we'll probably do a few more questions and start to close up the meeting at this point. So let's see, in terms of, diversifying and supply chain management, How many suppliers you really for each product line would you say, give or take, should a company have, or is that dependent on the type of product and what you're looking at?
Yeah, and I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier. I think, for your key items, you should have at least 2 to 3. And like I said before, you want to keep that initial supplier that you've used overseas. Even though you're developing these new relationships, those are going to take time to develop. It's gonna take a little bit to get comfortable working with that business and that supplier. So make sure you maintain the suppliers that you have, try to build upon the other ones. And I would say have 2 to 3 for your really key materials, your key items, and go with that. I think that would really give you an opportunity if there's something that happens, another disruption. Use those 2 or 3 suppliers. Don't just use one. Make sure you're giving business to both of those. You're maintaining that quality. And like I referenced earlier, make sure you're getting someone to that factory from your organization to make sure that things are going as smoothly as they should.
Okay. So
Hey,
that
Jeff.
might change. Oh, go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, sorry, just to piggyback on that a little bit. One of the things I forgot to mention that I think is important is one of the people I talked to who did do a supply chain analysis found out that they were actually paying more for one of their products than they had to, but they said they got comfortable with the supplier because they were with them for like 10 years. Well, because of this, they went out and did some shopping to find out what else was out there, and they realized they could source it domestically cheaper, and they hadn't been aware of that. So that's something for business owners, especially in the manufacturing arena, to be aware of. It's always good to go out and go shopping and see what the pricing structure is out there and what people are willing to do for you. If we all know that you can get volume purchases and things like that, but it's important to realize that, not only is it just, can I get access to this product, but what are my costs and what are you willing to do for me? A lot of hungry businesses out there, they're willing to work with you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, obviously, there's so many other factors you look at as well. I mean, what is the production time? What's the lead time? What are the payment terms? So all this affects your cash flow, which is really the lifeblood of your business. So you really need to look at all these other factors. So in some cases, these companies are paying a little bit more for those products, but at the same time, they may be getting that service level they need in terms of turnaround times, payment terms, those sort of things. So right now is a great time for companies to really just do an assessment of what your supply chain looks like, who these suppliers are, where can you get alternative sources to buy your goods.
And I'm going to jump in there real quick too. Besides using Kevin and the SBDC, which is a free service, by the way, I'll give you a little plug there, Kevin. But they're a great resource. And once again, I think if a manufacturer has any questions regarding this topic, to reach out to the SRMA, and we'll either get them in touch with Kevin directly or the SBDC. And also, I'll throw a line out there for Florida Makes. They also do a free assessment of your business model for manufacturing. It's strictly about manufacturing, and they do a great job of that. And then they come back with some suggestions. So if they believe that you're overpaying for a particular product or a particular line, that you might be able to reassess it and figure out what's the best way to go about it, and going into more detail, like Kevin just mentioned. So that there's definitely resources out there to find out what's the best way to move forward.
Okay. And Kevin, just to kind of rehash on that last point, what about the suppliers of your suppliers? How far down the supply chain should you really go when it's a global pandemic? And, if you had all the resources in the world, you could trace it all the way back to its origin. But how concerned as an OEM should you be if you're sourcing different parts that are pre-manufactured?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Obviously, a lot of times companies believe when they're buying, in particular, a finished product that company that's building that product is putting it all together right there and producing all those parts, when in fact, a lot of times they're just assembling and they're relying on all of these other vendors, to provide them. So yeah, it's a really, really tough thing when you look at the big picture, and it just depends on what type of a product or material you're bringing in. Obviously, raw material is kind of cut and dry. You want the quality to be there, but when you're talking about a finished product or a finished good that has several parts, most of those parts are being sourced. They're actually not being made at that factory overseas. So yeah, that is definitely a concern. And there's not a whole lot you can do right there. You just have to really spend time with your supplier and make sure that they're doing what you need to have them do within that time frame. But it's also an opportunity now to talk to your supplier and learn about their suppliers and learn about how their supply chain's working, and what to anticipate with that. So it all gets back to what we're talking about, just this period right now to assess what you're doing to better understand how that's going to affect you short term and long term.
That's good. Thank you. So I have one question here in the chat. What are some of the supplies, and anyone can jump in for this one. What are some of the supplies that are currently in demand in Southwest Florida now? What are you seeing?
Well, I can tell you, here I think construction supplies would certainly be number one. We see all the roofs. People don't, went through the storm years ago and they still don't have a new roof on their home. So roofing supplies, I think, are certainly important, but maybe you guys can add to that. But construction, I think, would be number one.
Okay. And probably medical supplies as well.
Yeah, and and obviously PPE stuff, personal protection equipment has been paramount the last several months and probably will be going forward. But I agree with Kevin, the construction industry. I mean, the amount of new housing is incredible. Home sales, I mean, we set records the last 2 months. I think we're 17 and 14% up over the prior year.
Wow.
It's incredible. And then, as far as there's people buying houses sight unseen, and it's even, I sit at home, I get phone calls, text messages, emails from all these realtors asking me to sell my house. It's like, people tell me that back in the mid 2005, 6, that was happening because there was such demand for people to come down here. But yeah, the construction trades are definitely something. I've seen the price increases. If you look at the last 2 years, construction products have just gone up tremendously, but supply and demand.
And one particular product for sure is the wood. I know that's made national news, but just the price of wood for residential building has just gone through the roof. And I've actually talked to builders have actually had to increase their pricing dramatically because of the fact that their prices have gone up so much as far as the wood products.
Okay, unless you guys as the panelists have anything else you want to say, I'm going to just wrap up and do my final paragraph here. Anything else you want to conclude with? All right.
Just, I know everyone's had a rough go of it. It hasn't been easy, but we've been resilient. There's still a lot of businesses. I know I'm crossing lines here, but bars are just opening up again this week. A lot of them have been closed for several months, and that's a tremendous hit to their bottom lines. And I know it's a limited opening, just like many of the other businesses, but it's taken a toll on us here and nationwide and internationally. But stay the course. Keep your eyes open on what's out there that can support your business. You have organizations here on this panel that are willing to help you either directly or to steer you in the right direction. So don't be shy. If you need something, reach out, because we know a lot of people out there in different areas that can be very supportive. And we all work with our local economic development people. There is a lot of activity going on, but we can't forget about the businesses that are already here. So if you have a need, reach out and we will do our level best to help you.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I will second that. I mean, if we don't have the answers, contact the SRMA. If somebody on the board doesn't have the right answers, we will find the answers for you and reach out. And that's not just local, but on a state or even a federal level.
Yep. Perfect.
Completely agree.
All right. Well, If you have any additional questions or something comes up after this webinar, I know this is recorded, so we'll be posting it to the website. For our panelists, for anyone within the manufacturing board or even the area in general, we encourage you email those questions to info@srma.net, and we will follow up. To summarize, like Dana mentioned, keep it going. Supply chains are starting to open up slowly. Things are going to get better. Keep a positive outlook, and I think we can get through this. The SRMA, we have our next event on Wednesday, October 21st from 8 to 9:30. We're going to be doing virtual plant tours with some of the top manufacturing firms in the region, Arthrex, My Shower Door, D3 Glass, potentially Wicked Dolphin. So for details, you can find them on our website, or you can email us at info@srma.net. We want to find out more about your business. Give us your stories if you want to send us how you've done through the pandemic, how you're currently doing, what resources you would like to move out of this. Or give us a call at 239-258-1385, and we can answer that call as well too. So we'd like to thank everyone that attended and their commitment to manufacturing in Southwest Florida to solidify our region and the regional economy. We encourage you to mention the organization outside of this conversation and send information to those who are available or interested in it all. We also do sponsorships, so if there's anyone that's maybe not a manufacturer that would like to get involved and help the community, that's done relatively well during this pandemic, also send them to us. But again, thank everyone. We'd like to see you on Wednesday, October 21st from 8 to 9:30 for our virtual plant tours. You'll get a good glimpse at how these companies operate and what we have to offer in Southwest Florida. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, and hope to see you at the next event. Thanks.